G'day, I'm Roland, and I've got with me Belle. And Belle Hunter worked with me at the AJ 2019 Scout Jamboree. And we're putting an application in for the DLTV, and this is for their community grant. And we've got a really good idea. And we've been talking about it with colleagues at Virtual School Victoria. And it's been something that I've been talking. Now, at the Jamboree, Belle, you talked about how important it is for kids to have a voice when they're doing technology and STEM stuff. What did you mean by that?
I meant by giving them an opportunity to implement their own ideas and do some imaginative exploration themselves rather than just following provided directions, because we know that the future of Australia and the future of the world is really based in being innovative, and that doesn't come if we just follow what we're told.
That is music to my ears, because I know that as a Scout leader, we try to get kids to invent and create, and that's engineering and construction. But also as a school teacher, we want to try and get them to be creative and inventive. It doesn't happen so well in the classroom, but I saw it happening at the Jamboree. I mean, Scouts doing robotics.
Yeah, and I think that's a misconception about Scouting, the idea that we do some really old-fashioned activities, and we do some old-fashioned activities because we think that those are still important skills and still give kids a diverse range of experiences. But we definitely do lots of modern technology things, and particularly if the students are interested. So if the Scouts want to do those things, then we're trying to provide those opportunities, especially when the curriculum of education can sometimes limit that, or other limitations of the classroom walls.
Well, we are trying to get girls interested in technology. We're trying to get kids in distant areas. I know there are many Scout groups scattered around Australia, even in Central Australia with Indigenous communities. What I'm curious about is schools are terrible sometimes at crushing creativity. And I know that your background is also in the arts area. Why does that happen?
That is a really good question. I'm a very creative person by nature, and that's probably because of my upbringing. I think as adults, we can't become quite stunted in our ability to think creatively, because we have to be so structured in our work environments generally. And so I think that can be the same for teachers. We get into routines and we want to meet goals rather than thinking about the processes. And I think some people just don't have confidence in creativity, because just like technology, we have a belief that creativity, being creative, doing arts is only for artistic people.
Thank you.
Where that's just not true at all.
You're working as an SSO at the moment, aren't you?
I am.
Which school is that?
At Brunswick East Primary School.
Wonderful. And I guess lesson plans sometimes make it really hard for kids to experiment, play, innovate, and we lock machines down so they can't change them. Now, computer clubs are a really good way of doing it. And we were thinking about having a Raspberry Pi, or we call it a Pi Club. But I'll jump to a slideshow that I've got here that I want to explain a little bit about what we're trying to do here. Things have really changed. Now, robotics used to be really expensive, and we were able to get robots to use in the South Australian desert. Well, with emerging technologies at the moment, we can actually have, if I can start this up here, really cheap computers. And what you're looking at the screen here now is what's called a Raspberry Pi 400.
Mm-hmm.
And inside the Raspberry Pi 400 is just one of these chipsets. And you can see that's for $74 just for that. And that's a full working computer. You just simply add a keyboard, mouse, and a connector, and you're up and running. In fact, a smart VCE student will be able to remotely connect to it and just use their laptop, but they can configure and change everything. It can play videos. And with this version here, you can even plug it into, say, a TV. You can run a web server off it, make an Internet of Device things. You can program in Python. You can program in PHP. You can even make a media server.
It seems like a really untapped resource, because even in mainstream education, we see technology and coding as a really expensive endeavour, and generally speaking, really is expensive to access those resources and purchase those resources, especially when you're trying to teach large groups of people. But if you have a look at these devices like the Raspberry Pi, they are incredibly cheap, which and really crazily diverse. You can just use it for so many things. uncanny, the learning
Well,
potential from
what's
it.
missing is perhaps a scaffolding that a teacher could use. So we've got this computer here that's called Headless. We've also got here this thing called a LilyGo. And a LilyGo is a tiny little watch device, but again, it's a data logger. I can use it to measure acceleration, latitude, longitude, temperature, a whole lot of biometric information. And for students to actually look at wearing a piece of technology that's collecting data and then integrating that data with the Raspberry Pi, or even coding the watch, because this can actually allow us to use this language here, which is called microblocks, that allows you to actually run and simulate and actually program. So here we have the LilyGo device. You can unplug in a familiar language, or you could use the actual MicroPython. This
And
is
I
a new
think,
language, yeah.
yeah, I think this type of technology is quite relevant to kids, and they know what it is. You know, a lot of young children I see now have those smartwatch devices, which are very expensive Christmas and birthday gifts, and they already come fully functioning and are usually quite limited in their function, you know, counting your steps or giving you a star when you go to bed at a certain time. But the reality is that we've got sick elderly people, and they use quite the medical devices and things like those watches children could program for the needs of their family members. So
I love the idea of kids actually having some control in their universe to innovate, create, invent, imagine.
And find solutions, finding solutions.
So we want to get teachers up to speed of it, and we're looking for this grant application to purchase, I guess, as many as we can. 5 would be great, and 10 would be ideal. But it would mean that for less than $200, we can get up a student and some teachers with these devices. We can try out some of the ideas we could have. We could write some of the challenges that we could put to the students. We can inspire some innovation in a club, and then also encourage parents to consider joining in. It's a passion project. We have teachers from Victorian School, Virtual School Victoria, who can actually help out. We've got teachers like yourself, or even we could look at Scouts Victoria getting involved with some of the teacher educators who are working there. And we're hoping that the DLTV can support our community application. It is just equipment, but it can be the gateway that we can have to write material that can stimulate a club, that can play with MicroPython here, or can actually allow students to explore a web server. And this could form the basis of a passion project that could inform a student's work for VCE Unit 2 Outcome 1, or just some fun stuff that they can make a wearable technology watch, and when granny falls over, the web page flags up, and then the alarm goes off and the Internet of Things comes that she needs help. Or a weather station that perhaps can do some weather modeling. You know what? That innovation and that exploration is up to the kids to do, not for me to decide, but we can provide the scaffolding that'll help the kids to do that. Thank you very much, Belle. And I hope that the DLTV considers the application.
Oh, I hope so too. I think it's well invested money, that's for sure.
So my goanna says thank you. Bye.
See you later.